Across the world, subtle tremors manifested, satellites altered orbit, power grids momentarily destabilized, traffic systems aligned in impossible sequences, and military drones halted midair. Civilians noticed only fleeting anomalies, a streetlight flickering in perfect timing, an elevator stopping mid-floor, a train slowing just enough to prevent collision. Yet these were not mere disruptions. They were lessons. Warnings. Demonstrations of power that the world could not comprehend. Victor Crow's lips pressed into a thin line. I've hunted monsters my entire life, and I've never felt so small. Eleanor's gaze softened, proud yet grave. That is because he is no man. He is the dragon. And the dragon does not compete with men. It commands the world itself. Ethan's consciousness coiled like a living storm, precise and patient. Every global network, every defense system, every secret organization felt the invisible hand guiding them. The world was awakening to the reality of its new master, though no one yet realized the extent of the dragon's reach. The dragon does not destroy blindly, Ethan murmured, voice low but commanding. It enforces balance, inevitability, dominance. Those who oppose it will fall. Those who bend will prosper. And all will know its authority. From the shadows of government bunkers to the highest towers of multinational corporations, the dragon's influence had already touched every corner of the globe. No one could hide. No one could fight effectively. Every calculation, every weapon, every plan was already anticipated and neutralized before it could even be executed. The world's first true reckoning had begun. And the dragon, Tianlong, was just getting started. Chapter 26, The Dragon's Command. The sun rose over the sprawling cities of the world, yet the light could not pierce the invisible grip of the dragon. Ethan Lee did not move among the crowds, did not enter the halls of power, yet every system, every network, every hidden force had already felt his influence. The world bent subtly, invisibly, like clay in the hands of a master sculptor. Samuel Lin, sitting beside him in the observation vehicle atop a remote peak, broke the tense silence. Ethan, this is beyond control. Entire nations, private militaries, intelligence agencies, they're all reacting to you before even knowing you exist. Ethan's dark eyes glimmered faintly. That is precisely the point. The dragon does not fight directly. It enforces. Resistance is irrelevant. The world will obey, not out of fear, but because there is no alternative. Grace Zhao's voice trembled slightly. And if someone tries to challenge you openly? They will fail, Ethan said calmly, absolute in his conviction. The dragon anticipates, prepares, and ensures inevitability. Open resistance is merely a confirmation of what is already decided. Across continents, the subtle chaos continued. Military grids hesitated. Satellites shifted imperceptibly in orbit. Financial networks staggered under ghostly manipulations. Even the most secretive organizations discovered that their plans, encrypted to the highest degree, had been anticipated and neutralized without a trace of exposure. In a command center in Europe, Captain Reinhardt stared at the malfunctioning systems, teeth gritted. This isn't just a disruption, it's as if someone controls everything at once. Every system, every calculation, every response, anticipated. Unknown to him, every movement, every hesitation, every microdecision was guided by Ethan's consciousness. The dragon's awareness stretched far beyond human comprehension, bending reality without ever leaving the shadows. Back at the White Silence facility, Victor Crow stood silently, awed and fearful. I've fought killers, monsters, the impossible, but this is something else entirely. He doesn't strike. He decides. And the world obeys. Eleanor Lee's silver eyes glimmered softly. He is the dragon, Victor. Not a man. Not a weapon. He is inevitability itself. And dragons do not negotiate, they command. Crow's jaw tightened. And if the world resists? Eleanor's gaze was serene, absolute. Then the world will learn obedience, the hard way. Ethan extended his consciousness further, touching the systems, infrastructures, and networks of every major city. Supply chains, transportation grids, energy networks, all bent subtly, perfectly, without a single visible action. The dragon does not dominate by brute force, Ethan murmured. It dominates by certainty. By anticipation. By removing choice from those who cannot comprehend it. And now, it commands the world itself. Samuel Lin exhaled slowly, a mixture of awe and fear. He isn't just controlling the world, he's rewriting the rules. Grace Xiao shivered, her hand brushing his arm. And the people, the governments, the powers that be, they'll understand too late. Ethan's lips curved faintly. Exactly. The dragon does not wait for permission. It enforces reality itself. Those who bend will prosper. Those who resist will fall. From the shadows of the global stage, military strategists, intelligence agencies, and elite syndicates realized their world had been touched by a force beyond comprehension. Satellites blinked in impossible sequences. Power grids flickered in eerie harmony. Drones and automated weapons faltered at precisely the moments they would have been used. Everywhere, subtle tremors reminded the world that the dragon had arrived, and it was no longer hiding. Victor Crow muttered under his breath, awed and fearful. He doesn't just control, he owns everything without touching it. Eleanor nodded, calm and proud. He is the dragon. And the dragon commands. Ethan Lee's dark eyes glimmered across continents, across networks, across every hidden system in the world. His pulse resonated with the dragon's power, coiling and uncoiling like restrained lightning. The dragon does not merely awaken, it enforces, he murmured softly. And the world will learn the meaning of inevitability. The first wave of global submission had begun. The dragon had assumed command. And nothing, no army, no government, no secret organization, could stop its reach. Chapter 27, The Dragon's Judgment. The world had awakened, but it was still blind. Governments scrambled, intelligence networks reeled, and clandestine organizations activated their deadliest contingents, yet none could touch the invisible hand that had already decided their fates. Every calculation, every strategy, every hidden move had been anticipated, accounted for, and neutralized before execution. Ethan Lee did not move among the chaos. He did not need to. His presence extended like a coiled storm across continents, threading into networks, infrastructure, and the very flow of information. The dragon was everywhere and nowhere at once, a force unseen yet undeniable. Samuel Lin, tense and pale, broke the silence in the observation vehicle perched atop the mountains overlooking the city. Ethan, they're moving against you. Covert operations, elite forces, private armies, they're all trying to respond simultaneously. Ethan's dark eyes glimmered faintly. They are already too late. The dragon does not fight on reaction, it commands inevitability. Every movement they make is already within my control. Grace Xiao's voice trembled. And if they refuse to bend? If they fight openly? They will fall, Ethan said quietly, absolute. The dragon does not negotiate. It enforces. Those who oppose inevitability are removed before they understand it. In the heart of Europe, Captain Reinhardt's elite task force faced systems that had failed in impossible ways. Drones hovered midair, weapons locked inexplicably, communications scrambled in precise patterns. His most calculated strategies collapsed before even being executed. Reinhardt's eyes widened in disbelief. It's controlling everything, every system, every calculation, every micro-decision. How is this possible? Unknown to him, every hesitation, every attempted countermeasure, every thought he had was anticipated and neutralized by Ethan's consciousness. The dragon did not just observe, it coiled through the world, bending it as effortlessly as a river bends around a rock. Back at the White Silence facility, Victor Crow stood silently beside Eleanor Lee. "I've faced the strongest, the most cunning, the deadliest," he murmured under his breath. "But this isn't even human. It's inevitability made flesh." Eleanor's silver eyes shone softly. "It is our son. He is the dragon. And dragons do not bargain, do not fight as men fight, they enforce." Crow swallowed hard. "And if the world resists?" Eleanor's gaze was serene and absolute. "Then they will learn obedience, through the dragon's judgment. Ethan extended his consciousness further, touching the most secure networks, the most secret facilities, the most dangerous organizations hidden in the shadows of the world. Supply chains faltered without explanation. Weapons systems failed at critical moments. Financial networks staggered under invisible pressure. Every opponent who had thought themselves untouchable suddenly realized their vulnerability, though none could trace the source. "The dragon does not destroy blindly," Ethan murmured softly. "It judges, with precision, inevitability, and authority. Those who oppose it fall. Those who submit thrive. And the world will learn that resistance is futile." From the shadows of power, secret leaders, generals, and strategists discovered the limits of human control. Automated systems that should have been fail-safes betrayed them. Communications encrypted beyond comprehension were rerouted and manipulated without detection. The invisible presence of the dragon was everywhere. Victor Crow whispered again, voice trembling, "He doesn't just control, he owns everything without touching it." Eleanor nodded calmly, pride and awe in her eyes. "He is the dragon. And the dragon does not forgive weakness. It enforces balance." Ethan Lee's dark eyes glimmered across continents, threading through every system, every network, every hidden stronghold. The pulse of the dragon blood surged within him, coiling like restrained lightning. "The dragon does not awaken to destroy," he murmured. "It awakens to judge. And the world will learn inevitability." The first wave of global submission had passed. The dragon had begun its judgment. And nothing, no army, no government, no secret organization, could escape its reach. Chapter 28, The Dragon's Dominion Secured. The world shivered under a weight it could neither see nor resist. Entire nations, hidden organizations, and elite mercenary networks had begun to feel the invisible grip of the dragon. Every system they relied on, digital, mechanical, even human, responded to an unseen hand. It was subtle, precise, and unavoidable. Ethan Lee stood atop the cliff overlooking the Pacific, the wind tugging lightly at his coat. His dark eyes scanned the horizon, reflecting both the calm surface of the ocean and the storm of inevitability he had unleashed. The pulse of the dragon blood within him coiled and uncoiled like restrained lightning, spreading silently across continents. Samuel Lin's voice broke the silence, tense and awed. "Ethan, you've done it. The world, it obeys you without even knowing it. Every hidden force, every network, it's all under your control." Ethan's lips curved faintly, dark and calm. "Not control. Enforcement. The dragon does not influence, it enforces inevitability. Every system, every structure, every shadow of power, acknowledges its presence. And soon, the world will understand." Grace Xiao's hand trembled as she reached toward him. "And the people, the governments, the ones who resist? They will fall," Ethan said quietly, "absolute. The dragon does not negotiate, does not bargain. It removes opposition before it can even understand what faces it. Those who bend thrive under its shadow. Those who resist are erased from the equation." Across Europe, Asia, and North America, hidden factions, the ones the world thought untouchable, felt the consequences of their arrogance. Drones froze midair, military grids faltered, encrypted communications rerouted themselves invisibly. Elite task forces found themselves paralyzed, their own calculations anticipating defeat even before action. Captain Reinhardt's face was pale. "It's everywhere, but nowhere. Every system, every plan, every move, anticipated and neutralized. It's like, reality itself is following someone else's hand." Indeed, it was. The dragon did not strike blindly, did not rely on weapons or armies. Every move was inevitability made flesh, executed with precision and patience. At the White Silence facility, Victor Crow stood beside Eleanor Lee, watching news feeds from across the globe. "I've fought legends, monsters, and killers," he murmured. "But this is different. He doesn't fight, he decides. And the world obeys." Eleanor's silver eyes gleamed softly. "He is our son. He is the dragon. And dragons do not bargain. They command. They enforce. And the world will bend accordingly. Crow swallowed hard. And if they resist? Eleanor's voice was calm, absolute. Then they will feel the dragon's judgment. And they will understand the cost of opposition. Ethan's consciousness reached further, threading into the most secure systems, the most secretive factions, the most dangerous networks. Supply chains aligned perfectly with his design, energy grids pulsed in harmony with his intent. And hidden organizations found their plans collapsing before execution. The dragon does not destroy randomly, Ethan murmured softly. It restructures. It enforces balance. It removes the unfit and empowers the willing. And the world will learn inevitability. Subtle tremors ran through the planet. Stock exchanges faltered for a moment, satellites adjusted themselves inexplicably, military grids hesitated, and hidden networks collapsed silently. Civilians felt fleeting anomalies, a traffic light flashing impossibly, a train slowing without explanation, but no one knew the hand behind it. Victor Crow whispered, awestruck, "He doesn't just dominate, he owns everything without touching it." Eleanor nodded. "He is the dragon. And the dragon does not forgive weakness. It enforces the world as it should be." Ethan's eyes glimmered across continents, threading through networks, infrastructure, and hidden strongholds. The pulse of dragon blood surged within him, coiling like restrained lightning. "The dragon does not awaken to destroy," he murmured. "It awakens to enforce. To command. To reshape the world." And now, the dragon's dominion is secured. The first phase of global transformation had been completed. The dragon had not just awakened, it had claimed the world. And nothing, no army, no government, no hidden faction, could challenge its supremacy. Chapter 29, The Dragon Reveals. The world had long whispered of unseen forces, shadowy powers, and invisible wars waged behind closed doors. Yet nothing had prepared humanity for the awakening of Ethan Leith the dragon. From his perch on a remote cliff overlooking the sprawling metropolis, Ethan extended his consciousness across continents. Systems, networks, hidden infrastructures, all bent subtly, perfectly, to his will. But the time for subtlety had passed. The dragon would reveal itself. Samuel Lynn's voice broke the tense silence in the observation vehicle. "Ethan, they'll see you soon. Nations, militaries, they'll realize what's been controlling them." Ethan's dark eyes glimmered faintly, calm and absolute. "They've already felt it. But feeling is not understanding. It's time they see the dragon. Seeing forces comprehension. Comprehension forces obedience." Grace Xiao's hand trembled slightly as she asked, "And if they try to challenge you openly?" "They will fail," Ethan said quietly, unyielding. "The dragon does not negotiate. It enforces. Those who resist are removed before they can even act. Those who bend will survive, and thrive." In the capitals of the world, world leaders convened emergency meetings. Intelligence agencies scrambled, private militias mobilized, and covert organizations tried desperately to trace the anomalies that had crippled them for weeks. Then, the first visible signs appeared. Massive drones hovered silently over major cities, their navigation systems flawlessly controlled but visibly coordinated in impossible formations. Power grids pulsed in precise patterns, drawing attention. Traffic systems aligned perfectly, creating geometric patterns across entire urban landscapes. The world paused. Something, someone, was orchestrating it all. At the United Nations headquarters, delegates stared in disbelief at live feeds of global anomalies, drones hovering in perfect formation, stock exchanges and energy grids pulsing visibly in synchronized patterns, and automated military systems halting mid-execution. Ambassadors whispered nervously, "This isn't cyber war, this isn't technology, it's intelligence itself. It's alive." Outside, in the skies above, a single figure appeared atop a remote skyscraper. Ethan Lee, calm and composed, surveyed the chaos he had already orchestrated. The city, the continent, the world, everywhere he looked, systems obeyed him without question. "The dragon does not hide anymore," Ethan murmured. "It commands. And it shows itself to the world. Let them understand the cost of resistance." Victor Crow, standing in the shadows of the White Silence facility, muttered, awestruck, "I've fought the impossible, the monsters and killers that defy reason, but this is inevitability incarnate. He doesn't strike, he decides. And the world bends." Eleanor Lee's silver eyes glimmered softly. "He is our son. He is the dragon. And dragons do not bargain. They do not fight like men fight. They command." In the skies above New York, London, Beijing, and Paris, drones formed the shape of a dragon, massive, looming, undeniable. Systems aligned perfectly, pulsing in synchronized rhythms. Every hidden power, every covert operative, every government network felt the presence of the dragon in real time. Samuel Lin whispered, awestruck, "Ethan, they're seeing you. The world, they're seeing the dragon." Ethan's eyes darkened, glowing faintly in the dawn light. "And now they will understand. Legends are not myths. Power is not granted, it is claimed. And the dragon claims everything it touches." The first phase of revelation had begun. The dragon was no longer hidden. The dragon was no longer subtle. The world had seen the dragon. And it would never be the same again. Chapter 30, The Dragon Ascends. The world had seen the dragon. Cities had trembled, governments had faltered, and hidden powers had realized that nothing, not weapons, not armies, not cunning, could defy Ethan Lee. Now, it was time for the dragon to ascend fully, to step from the shadows and claim dominion openly. From the summit of the world's tallest skyscraper, Ethan looked out over the sprawling metropolis below. The air was still, the city quiet yet charged, systems humming in perfect obedience. Drones hovered above in precise formations, tracing a massive, serpentine dragon in the sky, a symbol of inevitability and absolute authority. Samuel Lin broke the silence, voice low and tense. "Ethan, they're all watching now. World leaders, generals, private armies, they're seeing the dragon for the first time. How will they respond?" Ethan's dark eyes glimmered faintly. "They will respond the only way possible, with submission. Legends are not understood, they are obeyed. The dragon does not negotiate. It does not bargain. It commands." Grace Xiao's hand trembled as she reached for him. "And if someone tries to challenge you openly, they will fall," Ethan said quietly, absolute in his conviction. "The dragon does not fight blindly. It judges, it enforces, it decides. Resistance is a proof of its authority." Across the globe, leaders convened emergency sessions. Military commands activated their most secret contingents, covert operatives scrambled, and private organizations mobilized their most lethal resources. Yet everywhere they moved, systems betrayed them. Drones hovered precisely where they were forbidden, satellites transmitted falsified coordinates, power grids surged or dimmed without explanation. Captain Reinhardt muttered under his breath in Europe, "It's controlling everything. Every calculation, every weapon, every countermeasure, it's already neutralized before we can act. It's as if reality itself is following him." Indeed, it was. The dragon had become more than a man. It was inevitability given form, a force that transcended human comprehension. At the White Silence facility, Victor Crow and Eleanor Lee watched news feeds in silent awe. Crow whispered, voice trembling, "I've fought the deadliest, the impossible, the untouchable, but this is beyond everything. He doesn't strike, he commands. And the world bends." Eleanor's silver eyes shone softly. "He is our son. He is the dragon. And dragons do not bargain. They do not negotiate. They enforce. And now, the world sees that enforcement is absolute." Ethan extended his consciousness further, threading through networks, systems, and the hidden powers of the world. Supply chains, transportation grids, energy networks, all responded subtly, perfectly, to his will. The dragon was no longer subtle, it was a force that demanded obedience. "The dragon does not awaken to destroy," Ethan murmured softly. "It awakens to command, to judge, to enforce inevitability. And the world will bend, or it will fall." In New York, London, Beijing, and Paris, drones formed serpentine dragons in the sky. Satellites adjusted their orbits in synchronized patterns. Energy grids pulsed, signaling a single truth: the dragon had arrived. The world had seen it, understood its presence, and begun to accept its inevitability. Samuel Lin whispered in awe, "They're seeing it. The world, they're seeing the dragon." Ethan's eyes darkened, glowing faintly. "And now they will understand. Power is not granted. Legends are not myths. Authority is claimed. And the dragon claims everything it touches." The first phase of global submission had passed. The dragon had revealed itself. Now, it was time for the world to bend fully to its will. Ethan Lee, the dragon, had ascended. And nothing, no army, no government, no hidden faction, could challenge him. The era of inevitability had begun. Chapter 31, The Dragon's Authority. The world was silent, yet it quivered. Not in fear of an army, not in the roar of bombs, but in recognition of a force unseen, unstoppable, undeniable. Ethan Lee, the dragon, had revealed himself. The hidden powers of the world, the elite factions that had believed themselves untouchable, were already bending before a presence they could neither touch nor resist. From the summit of a skyscraper in the heart of the city, Ethan surveyed the world as if it were a chessboard, every piece accounted for, every move anticipated. His dark eyes glimmered faintly in the dawnlight, reflecting both the calm of mastery and the storm of inevitability he carried. Samuel Lin broke the silence, voice tight with awe. "Ethan, you've done it. Every major power, every secret faction, they're already yielding to your will. They don't know it, but they're obeying." Ethan's lips curved faintly, calm and absolute. "Not obedience. Authority. The dragon does not demand submission, it enforces inevitability. They bend not out of fear, but because they have no alternative." Grace Xiao's hand rested lightly on his arm, trembling. "And if someone resists? If they refuse to yield? They will fall," Ethan said quietly, darkly. "Resistance is proof of their limits. The dragon does not negotiate. It judges, enforces, and reshapes. Those who resist are removed. Those who bend thrive under its shadow." Across continents, secret organizations, private armies, and intelligence agencies scrambled desperately. Yet every effort, every move, every hidden strategy was anticipated and neutralized before execution. Drones froze midair, encrypted communications rerouted themselves invisibly, and elite operatives found themselves isolated, unable to act. Captain Reinhardt muttered under his breath in Europe, "Every system, every calculation, it's already accounted for. It's impossible to fight, impossible to counter. It's like the world itself is following someone else's command." It was. The dragon did not merely observe, he coiled through the veins of the world, bending reality to his will with the precision of inevitability. At the White Silence facility, Victor Crow and Eleanor Lee watched the world's reactions unfold across screens. Crow whispered, awed and fearful, "I've hunted the strongest, faced the impossible, but this is beyond comprehension. He doesn't strike, he commands. And the world obeys." Eleanor's silver eyes glimmered with pride. "He is our son. He is the dragon. And dragons do not bargain. They do not negotiate. They enforce. They establish authority." Crow swallowed hard. "And the ones who dare resist? They will learn the cost of defiance," Eleanor replied softly. "And none will resist long." Ethan's consciousness extended further, threading through the most secure networks, the most secretive organizations, and the deadliest military installations. Supply chains aligned with his intent. Transportation grids moved flawlessly. Energy networks pulsed with subtle signals of obedience. Every hidden faction discovered that their plans had already failed before they could act. "The dragon does not dominate by force," Ethan murmured softly. "It dominates through inevitability. Those who oppose it fall. Those who bend thrive. And the world recognizes authority without knowing why." From the skies above major cities, drones traced serpentine dragons, satellite grids pulsed in synchronization, and subtle manipulations in finance, energy, and defense systems reinforced the truth: the dragon's reach was absolute. The world had seen him, felt him, and was beginning to accept the inevitability of his authority. Samuel Lin whispered, awestruck, "They're all yielding. The world, it's bending to him." Ethan's eyes darkened, glowing faintly. Legends are not myths. Authority is not granted. Power is not inherited. It is claimed. And the dragon claims everything it touches. The first phase of global restructuring had begun. The dragon had revealed itself. The dragon had judged. Now, it was time to establish permanent dominion. Ethan Lee, the dragon, was no longer a shadow. He was authority incarnate. And nothing, no army, no government, no hidden faction, could challenge the supremacy of the dragon. The era of inevitability had truly begun. Chapter 32, The Dragon's New World. The world had bent, willingly or unwillingly, under the invisible hand of the dragon. Nations faltered, secret factions dissolved, and elite operatives who had once believed themselves untouchable now realized the impossibility of defiance. Yet Ethan Lee did not pause. The dragon did not merely conquer, it reshaped, redefined, and enforced. From the summit of the highest peak overlooking the sprawling metropolis, Ethan surveyed the planet with eyes that seemed to pierce through every system, every network, every hidden stronghold. His presence was not just physical, it was omnipresent. The pulse of dragon blood within him coiled and stretched across continents like restrained lightning, bending infrastructure, finance, and strategy to his will. Samuel Lin, tense and awed, broke the silence. Ethan, every global threat, every secret power, they're already neutralized or bending. There's almost nothing left that can resist you. Ethan's dark eyes glimmered faintly. The dragon does not merely neutralize. It enforces inevitability. Those who resist are removed. Those who bend thrive. And the world must recognize the new order. Grace Xiao's hand rested lightly on his arm, trembling. And the ones who still oppose you? Hidden factions, rogue forces, what will you do with them? They will fall, Ethan said quietly, with cold certainty. Resistance is a proof of weakness. The dragon does not negotiate. It judges. It enforces. It corrects imbalance. Those who remain defiant are eliminated before they understand the nature of their failure. Across continents, the final stages of consolidation were underway. Military grids, intelligence networks, and secret organizations that had once ruled from the shadows now found themselves subtly crippled. Supply lines redirected, communications rerouted, and autonomous systems stalled, all without a single visible act from the dragon. Captain Reinhardt, isolated in Europe, muttered under his breath, every calculation, every countermeasure, anticipated. Every weapon, every strategy, neutralized. It's impossible. He's controlling reality itself. Indeed, he was. The dragon did not merely act in the world, he wove it, bending fate itself around his will. At the White Silence facility, Victor Crow and Eleanor Lee observed the world's final adjustments to the dragon's supremacy. Crow whispered, a mix of awe and dread in his voice, I've faced the deadliest, the impossible. But this is inevitability made real. He doesn't strike, he commands. And the world bends. Eleanor's silver eyes shone with pride. He is our son. He is the dragon. And dragons do not bargain. They enforce. They restructure. They claim authority, not with brute force, but with inevitability. Crow swallowed hard. And if anyone dares defy him, they will disappear, Eleanor replied softly, absolute. Those who resist vanish quietly, without fanfare. The world learns to bend before it even realizes it is doing so. Ethan extended his consciousness to touch every remaining hidden faction, the ones still daring to exist outside his influence. Autonomous systems failed at critical moments, supply chains collapsed, and rogue operatives found themselves isolated, their plans neutralized before execution. The dragon does not dominate by violence alone, Ethan murmured softly. It dominates through certainty, inevitability, and authority. Those who resist are removed. Those who bend are integrated. And the world will obey without questioning why. From New York to Tokyo, London to Beijing, the subtle symbols of the dragon's authority became undeniable. Drones formed massive serpentine patterns in the sky, energy grids pulsed in perfect synchrony, and communication networks subtly rerouted to facilitate the new order. Even civilians sensed it. In fleeting moments of wonder and unease, the world had changed, whether they understood why or not. Samuel Lin whispered, awestruck, "They're all bending. The world, it's becoming his." Ethan's eyes darkened, glowing faintly in the dawn light. Legends are not stories. Authority is not granted. Power is not inherited. It is claimed. And the dragon claims all that it touches. The first global consolidation had been completed. The dragon had judged. The dragon had enforced. Now, he was building a new world. A world that would operate under his supremacy. A world where inevitability was law. Ethan Lee, the dragon, was no longer merely a presence. He was authority incarnate. And nothing, no hidden faction, no government, no army, could challenge the dragon's rule. The era of the dragon's dominion had begun. Chapter 33, The Dragon Reshapes the World. The world no longer resisted. It adjusted. Like a vast organism responding to a new governing force, nations, markets, and systems began to realign, not through chaos, but through eerie precision. What once took years of negotiation, war, and compromise now shifted in days, even hours. The dragon had begun to reshape the world. Ethan Lee stood alone inside the highest chamber of the global relay tower, a structure that did not officially exist on any map. From here, every major economic artery, security framework, and governance protocol converged. Streams of data flowed like rivers of light around him, reflecting in his calm, unreadable eyes. Samuel Lin watched from behind, his voice barely above a whisper. "This isn't domination anymore, Ethan. This is reconstruction. You're rewriting the foundations of civilization." Ethan did not turn. Civilization was already broken. Corrupt incentives. Fragile systems. Leaders pretending to govern while chaos brewed beneath the surface. The dragon does not destroy what works, it corrects what fails. Grace Xiao stepped closer, unease and awe mingling in her expression. "You're restructuring global finance, energy distribution, even food supply chains. Entire economies are stabilizing overnight. People will notice." "They already have," Ethan replied calmly. "They just don't understand why stability has returned. They will call it coincidence. Luck. A miracle." The dragon does not need credit, only compliance. Across the world, markets that had once been volatile settled into unprecedented balance. Artificial scarcity vanished. Supply chains synchronized with demand. Energy grids optimized themselves, eliminating waste and blackouts. Nations that had teetered on collapse suddenly found their currencies stabilizing, their infrastructures repairing themselves as if guided by an unseen hand. In government halls, leaders stared at reports they could not explain. "This shouldn't be possible," one prime minister muttered. "Our deficits vanished," another whispered. "It's like the system fixed itself." They were wrong. It had been fixed. At the White Silence facility, Victor Crow leaned back in his chair, staring at global projections with disbelief. "He's not ruling with fear," he said quietly. "He's making the world work. That's far more terrifying." Eleanor Lee's silver eyes were calm, proud. "That is the difference between tyrants and dragons. Tyrants demand loyalty. Dragons create inevitability. People will defend the system because it benefits them, even if they never know who built it." Crow exhaled slowly. "And if someone tries to dismantle it?" Eleanor's voice was soft, final. "They will be dismantling themselves." Ethan's consciousness extended deeper, not just into machines and systems, but into patterns of human behavior. Crime networks collapsed as financial incentives vanished. Terror cells found funding streams erased before recruitment could begin. Political extremism lost momentum as economic despair faded. The dragon does not police humanity, Ethan murmured. It removes the conditions that breed chaos. Control the incentives, and behavior follows. Samuel Lin swallowed hard. You're doing what generations of leaders failed to do, without a single public speech. Ethan finally turned, his gaze steady and unreadable. Speeches are for those who need belief. The dragon needs only results. Above the world's great cities, the symbols of the dragon appeared less frequently now. No more dramatic displays. No warnings. No threats. Stability itself had become the message. People slept more easily. Markets opened calmly. Borders grew quieter. And no one could explain why the world suddenly felt ordered. Grace Xiao whispered, almost to herself, "They'll never know it was you." Ethan's expression did not change. They don't need to. The dragon does not seek worship. Only balance. Only inevitability. The foundations of the new world were complete. Economy stabilized. Security unified. Governance corrected. The dragon had not conquered humanity. He had optimized it. Ethan Lee stood at the center of a world that now moved according to his design. And as the systems settled into perfect harmony, a single truth became undeniable. The age of chaos was over. The age of the dragon had begun. Chapter 34, The Flaw in Inevitability. For the first time since the dragon had reshaped the world, something moved out of pattern. It was subtle, so subtle that no human system detected it. Markets remained stable. Energy grids hummed in perfect balance. Governments functioned with unprecedented efficiency. By every measurable metric, the world was operating exactly as Ethan Lee had designed it. And yet, something resisted. Ethan stood still inside the global relay tower, streams of data flowing around him like silent constellations. His brows tightened almost imperceptibly. The dragon blood within him stirred, not in triumph, but in alert. Samuel Lin noticed it immediately. "Ethan, what is it?" Ethan's eyes darkened. "An anomaly." Grace Xiao frowned. "An anomaly? That's impossible. Everything is synchronized. Every variable. Every system," Ethan interrupted calmly. "Not every human." The first crack appeared in a place no one was watching. In a forgotten industrial city, long abandoned by global trade routes, a man refused to respond as predicted. He was poor, unconnected, invisible by every algorithmic standard, and yet his actions diverged sharply from expectation. He did not follow incentive curves. He did not respond to stabilization. He did not adapt. Instead, he organized. Not through networks. Not through digital systems. But through people. Face to face. Word of mouth. Trust. Ethan's consciousness brushed against the region again, and met resistance. Not technological. Not encrypted. Something far more primitive. Free will. "A blind spot," Ethan murmured. Samuel's blood ran cold. "You mean, someone outside your reach?" Ethan shook his head slowly. "No one is outside my reach. But some operate outside prediction." At the White Silence facility, alarms, old, analog ones, began to sound. Victor Crow looked up sharply. "Those systems haven't triggered in decades." Eleanor Lee's expression shifted for the first time. Not fear, but focus. "Show me." On the screen appeared fragmented intelligence reports. No digital trail. No financial anomaly. No network footprint. Just movement. Unregistered gatherings. Communities forming beyond the dragon's optimization models. Crow exhaled slowly. "They're not fighting the system." Eleanor finished the thought quietly. "They're ignoring it." Back in the relay tower, Ethan's presence intensified. His consciousness descended deeper, threading into probability itself, recalculating futures in cascading layers. Yet every time he projected outcomes around the anomaly, the results blurred, diverged, split into branching uncertainties. For the first time since awakening as the dragon, Ethan encountered something he could not immediately decide. Grace whispered, "Is this dangerous?" Ethan's voice was steady, but colder than before. "Anything unpredictable is dangerous." Samuel clenched his fists. "So what do you do?" Ethan's gaze sharpened, dragon blood surging in a slow, controlled pulse. "I observe. I isolate. And if necessary." He paused. "I adapt." Across the world, the new order held firm. Most of humanity thrived under the dragon's invisible hand. Stability reigned. Chaos retreated. But beneath the surface, in places untouched by data and algorithms, small pockets of unpredictability began to grow. People who did not rebel, did not resist, did not attack. They simply refused to be optimized. Victor Crow muttered quietly, "You can't control someone who doesn't want what you're offering." Eleanor's eyes narrowed. Even dragons must learn this truth. Ethan Lee stood alone, framed by the glow of a perfectly ordered world. For the first time, the dragon faced a question no system could answer. What happens when inevitability meets choice? The dragon had reshaped the world. But humanity was not finished surprising him. And somewhere in the blind spots of perfection, a challenge was forming. Not to the dragon's power, but to his understanding. Chapter 35, The Unwritten Variable. The anomaly grew, not in size, but in weight. It did not spread like a virus. It did not multiply through networks or ideology. It did not announce itself with slogans or violence. Yet in Ethan Lee's vast awareness, it pressed against inevitability like a stone in the current, small, stubborn, and immovable. For the first time since the dragon had awakened fully, the future refused to settle. Inside the global relay tower, probability streams fractured again and again. Outcomes that should have converged instead diverged endlessly, collapsing into uncertainty. Ethan stood unmoving at the center of it all, his expression calm, but his dragon blood humming with restrained tension. Samuel Lin broke the silence, voice low. "You've simulated wars, economic collapses, even extinction-level events. Nothing has ever resisted you like this." Ethan's gaze remained fixed on the shifting projections. Because wars, collapses, extinction, they follow logic. Fear. Survival. Incentive. Grace Xiao swallowed. "And this doesn't?" Ethan finally turned. His eyes were dark, sharp, reflective. "This is not driven by fear," he said. "Nor by desire. This variable does not want power, wealth, or stability. It wants meaning." The man's name was Noah Hale. Unremarkable by every measurable standard. No advanced education. No known affiliations. No digital footprint worth noting. He lived in the margins, working with his hands, speaking with his voice, building trust face to face. No encryption. No networks. No optimization. And yet wherever Noah went, patterns broke. Communities formed without hierarchy. Decisions were made without efficiency. People chose hardship over convenience, effort over automation, uncertainty over guaranteed comfort. Ethan observed him directly now, not through systems, but through presence. Noah was aware. Not of the dragon's identity, but of the world's artificial smoothness. "He feels the constraint," Ethan murmured. Samuel frowned. "Without knowing you exist?" "Yes," Ethan replied. "Some humans sense order the way others sense danger. They don't understand it, but they reject it instinctively." At the White Silence facility, Victor Crow stared at Noah's profile, unease crawling up his spine. "That man doesn't look like a threat." Eleanor Lee folded her hands calmly. "That is precisely why he is one." Crow glanced at her. "You think Ethan should eliminate him?" Eleanor shook her head slowly. "If Ethan removes him, the variable multiplies. You cannot erase meaning without creating martyrs. This is not a war Ethan can win through force. Crow exhaled sharply. Then what? Eleanor's eyes sharpened. Then the dragon must learn. Ethan made a decision, one he had not needed to make since becoming the dragon. He would go personally. Not as a symbol. Not as authority. Not as inevitability. But as a man. The relay tower dimmed as Ethan disconnected vast portions of his consciousness, compressing the dragon into human form. For the first time in months, the world continued without his direct oversight. Grace's eyes widened. Ethan, if you limit yourself. I must, he said quietly. This variable cannot be understood from above. Only from within. Samuel hesitated. And if he refuses you? Ethan's expression was unreadable. Then I will have my answer. In the abandoned city, Noah Hale sat with a small group around a fire. No devices. No screens. Just voices and silence. When Ethan approached, Noah looked up immediately, eyes sharp, unafraid. You're not from here, Noah said. Ethan nodded. Neither are you, in a way. Noah studied him for a long moment. You feel like the world lately. Too precise. Ethan sat opposite him. And you feel like resistance. Noah smiled faintly. I don't resist. I choose. The word struck deeper than any weapon. For the first time, the dragon encountered something that could not be forced, optimized, or erased, only understood. Far above, the world remained stable. But below, beside a small fire in a forgotten place, inevitability met choice face to face. And Ethan Lee realized something profound. Power could command the world. But only understanding could guide humanity. The dragon had found his mirror. Chapter 36, When the Dragon Listens. The fire crackled softly between them, its glow dancing across cracked concrete and rusted steel. The abandoned city slept around them, untouched by optimization, untouched by the dragon's invisible hand. For the first time in a long while, Ethan Lee sat in a place where the world did not bend automatically to his will. Noah Hale poked at the fire with a stick, unhurried. You didn't answer my question, he said calmly. What are you really doing here? Ethan studied him closely. Without the vast lattice of global systems feeding him certainty, Noah felt opaque. Human. Real. I'm trying to understand, Ethan replied. Noah chuckled softly. That's a dangerous thing for someone like you. Ethan raised an eyebrow. You know what I am. No, Noah said honestly. But I know what you represent. Control. Order so perfect it leaves no room to breathe. He looked up, eyes steady. You're the reason the world feels quiet in the wrong way. The words landed heavier than Ethan expected. Far away, inside the White Silence facility, Eleanor Lee watched the live feed, limited, delayed, deliberately constrained. Victor Crow stood beside her, arms crossed. This is the first time I've ever seen him, restrained, Crow muttered. Eleanor nodded slowly. Because this is the first time brute inevitability would fail him. And if Noah pushes too far? Eleanor's gaze was thoughtful. Then Ethan will have to choose what kind of dragon he truly is. Back by the fire, Ethan leaned forward slightly. The world is more stable than it has ever been. Hunger has dropped. War has retreated. Chaos is collapsing under its own weight. How is that wrong? Noah did not answer immediately. He gestured toward the small group nearby, people laughing quietly, sharing food cooked unevenly, imperfectly. Tell me, Noah said, did you ask the world if it wanted to be saved? Ethan's jaw tightened. Humanity doesn't agree on anything. Waiting for consensus would have doomed them. Maybe, Noah replied. Or maybe you mistook inefficiency for failure. Messy doesn't mean broken. Silence stretched between them. The fire popped. Ethan spoke again, slower now. Choice breeds suffering. History proves that. And control breeds stagnation, Noah countered gently. People grow by making mistakes. You've removed the right to fail. The dragon stirred within Ethan, not in anger, but in conflict. Probability models flickered uselessly in his mind. This conversation did not resolve. It evolved. Grace Xiao watched the exchange from afar, heart pounding. He's not afraid of Ethan, she whispered. Samuel Lin shook his head. No, he's not impressed by him. That's worse. Ethan stood, towering slightly over Noah. If I loosen control, chaos returns. Power vacuums. Wars. Collapse. Noah rose as well, meeting his gaze without flinching. Then don't loosen everything. Just don't own everything. Ethan frowned. Explain. Guardrails, Noah said. Not cages. Let people choose within boundaries that prevent annihilation, not individuality. You don't need to be a ruler. Be a custodian. The word echoed. Custodian. For the first time, Ethan saw a future his models had never produced, a world guided, not commanded. Protected, not optimized into silence. High above, systems trembled, not from malfunction, but from adjustment. The dragon's grip loosened by a fraction of a fraction. Not enough for chaos. Just enough for choice to breathe. Eleanor Lee closed her eyes slowly. He's changing. Victor Crow exhaled. That may be the most dangerous thing of all. Ethan looked at Noah, the firelight reflecting in his eyes. If I do this, if I allow uncertainty, humanity may still destroy itself. Noah smiled sadly. That's the risk of being human. You can't save us from ourselves without erasing who we are. A long silence followed. Then Ethan spoke, quiet, measured, unprecedented. I will try. Not command. Not enforcement. Not inevitability. Choice. As dawn crept over the abandoned city, the world subtly shifted. Systems still held. Balance remained. But beneath it all, something new stirred, possibility. The dragon had not stepped down. But he had stepped back. And in that single act of restraint, the future became unwritten once more. Chapter 37, The Cost of Freedom. The first rupture did not arrive as a war, a famine, or a collapse. It arrived as hesitation. Across the world, systems that had once corrected human error before it manifested now paused, just long enough to allow choice. Traffic grids no longer forced perfect flow but suggested alternatives. Financial markets no longer preemptively neutralized risk, allowing speculation to breathe. Governments found their forecasts less absolute, their outcomes less certain. To most people, it felt like nothing. To those who paid attention, it felt like standing on the edge of something without a railing. In Geneva, a trade summit stalled. Delegates argued longer than they had in years. Voices rose. Compromises failed on the first attempt instead of being algorithmically guided toward success. This didn't happen before, one minister muttered, frustration creeping into his tone. No, another replied quietly. Before, we were being helped. The word helped hung uneasily in the room. In the underground command nexus, Samuel Lin watched the data streams with knitted brows. Minor volatility across 6 regions. Nothing catastrophic, but, he hesitated. Grace Xiao finished the thought. People are making bad decisions again. Ethan Lee stood at the center of the chamber, hands clasped behind his back, gaze unfocused. He felt the tremors everywhere, not as alerts, but as possibilities. Futures branching wildly, no longer collapsing neatly into optimal outcomes. Yes, Ethan said. They are. Samuel turned sharply. Then say the word. We can tighten the net. Just a little. No one would even notice. Ethan did not answer. Far away, in the abandoned city, Noah Hale sat alone on a rooftop, watching the sunrise paint broken towers gold. A radio crackled beside him, voices arguing, laughing, panicking, living. He smiled faintly. So, he murmured to the wind, let's see what you do with it. The first real test came from Lagos. A logistics consortium, newly freed from invisible constraints, rerouted supplies for profit instead of balance. Within 48 hours, shortages rippled through 3 districts. Protests ignited. Violence followed. Ethan felt it instantly. The dragon stirred. He could fix it in less than a second. Override contracts. Freeze assets. Redirect shipments. Silence the unrest before it found its voice. His fingers twitched. Grace noticed. Ethan. I know, he said quietly. The room waited. Instead of acting directly, Ethan adjusted something far subtler, information transparency. The corruption was exposed, not erased. Evidence surfaced. Journalists received leads. Courts regained relevance. The crisis did not vanish. But it resolved. Slower. Messier. Human. In the White Silence facility, Eleanor Lee watched the unfolding events with conflicted eyes. He's letting them bleed, Victor Crow said flatly. Eleanor shook her head. No. He's letting them heal themselves. Crow scoffed. That assumes they can. Eleanor turned to him, her gaze sharp. And that assumption is the difference between a tyrant and a guardian. Days passed. Some regions flourished under freedom, innovation surging where fear had once ruled. Others stumbled, falling into old habits, greed, pride, short-sightedness. Ethan felt every failure like a weight. For the first time since becoming the dragon, he felt tired. Late one night, he stood alone, overlooking a city alive with imperfect light. Noah's words echoed in his mind. You don't need to own everything. Ethan exhaled slowly. Freedom is inefficient, he said to the empty air. The city did not answer. But it lived. High above the planet, beyond satellites and sensors, something ancient and unseen stirred, drawn not by control, but by uncertainty. Forces that had slept while the dragon ruled absolutely now began to take interest. Where there is freedom, there is opportunity. And not all who seek opportunity are human. Ethan's eyes narrowed as a new variable entered his awareness, one that did not belong to any system he had ever touched. The dragon listened. The world had been given choice. Now it would face consequence. Chapter 38, The Ones Who Watched. Ethan felt it before he could define it. Not a signal. Not data. Not even intent. It was absence, an irregular hollow in the fabric of awareness itself, like a blind spot that refused to be illuminated. The dragon's perception swept across continents, oceans, and networks, and yet this thing remained untouched because it was not hiding. It was waiting. High above the Pacific, an unregistered satellite altered its orbit by less than a degree. No alarms triggered. No systems corrected it. The movement was too precise to be accidental and too insignificant to be flagged. Ethan noticed anyway. That's not human, he said quietly. Samuel Lin froze. I don't see anything anomalous. That's because you're looking for behavior, Ethan replied. I'm looking for silence. In the White Silence facility, ancient servers, long believed obsolete, activated themselves. Lights flickered to life, running on architectures no modern system recognized. Victor Crow stared at the displays in disbelief. These machines were air-gapped before I was born. Eleanor Lee's expression hardened. Then they weren't built for us. Across the world, individuals experienced moments of inexplicable clarity. A linguist in Peru woke knowing a language she had never studied. A mathematician in Oslo solved an equation that should not have been solvable. A child in Nairobi drew symbols that caused nearby electronics to fail. Ethan saw them all. These are probes, he said. Not invasions. Questions. Grace Xiao swallowed. From who? Ethan did not answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice carried no uncertainty. From those who ruled before humanity learned how to record history. Noah Hale felt it too, though he had no words for it. The wind over the abandoned city shifted direction unnaturally, spiraling inward. The fire at his feet burned blue for a single heartbeat, then returned to normal. He laughed softly. "Well," he said to no one, "that didn't take long." The dragon reached outward, carefully, respectfully. For the first time, Ethan did not attempt control. He sent no command, no override. Instead, he offered presence. "I am aware," he projected into the void. "And I am listening." The response was not immediate. When it came, it did not arrive as sound or image. It arrived as memory. Ethan staggered. Cities older than stone. Stars mapped before light learned to travel. Civilizations that rose and fell not by war, but by exhaustion. They had guided once. They had withdrawn. They had watched. "You are young," the presence conveyed. "And you are loud." Ethan steadied himself. Humanity is not ready to be harvested, judged, or erased. A ripple of something like amusement passed through the void. "We are not reapers," it replied. "We are auditors." Samuel saw Ethan's reaction and stepped forward. "Ethan, what's happening?" "They're evaluating us," Ethan said slowly. "The moment I loosened control, they noticed." Freedom creates unpredictability. Unpredictability attracts observers. Grace whispered, "Are they enemies?" "No," Ethan said. "That's worse. They're neutral." In the white silence facility, Eleanor closed her eyes, feeling the weight of ancient attention settle over the planet. "Ethan," she murmured, though she knew he could hear her. "Whatever they are, do not bow." Victor Crow scoffed nervously. "And if they decide we fail their audit?" Eleanor opened her eyes, fierce and unwavering. "Then my son will remind them that dragons do not exist to be graded." The presence shifted again. "Show us why you deserve autonomy." Ethan felt the meaning clearly. Not dominance. Not perfection. Not obedience. Choice under pressure. The dragon drew a slow breath. "If you want to see humanity," he replied into the void, "then watch what we do when we're afraid." Somewhere beyond space, the watchers adjusted their attention. The test had begun. And this time, the dragon would not face it alone. Chapter 39, Truth, Carefully Measured. The first message was never meant for everyone. Ethan knew that instinctively. Truth, released without structure, could fracture a civilization faster than any war. Humanity had been given freedom again, but it was still fragile, like a limb relearning how to bear weight after years of atrophy. So the dragon chose a narrow path. In a secure chamber beneath Reykjavik, 7 people gathered around a circular table. They were not the most powerful leaders on earth, nor the wealthiest, nor the most obedient. They were the most resilient. A sociologist who had survived 3 collapsed states. A philosopher known for dismantling absolutes. A general who had refused unlawful commands. A biologist who believed life adapted faster than fear. A judge who had sentenced her own brother. A historian who studied forgotten extinctions. And Noah Hale. They all looked up as the air shifted, not violently, not theatrically, but with unmistakable certainty. Ethan Lee appeared. Not as a projection. Not as a god. As a man. "You're late," Noah said mildly. Ethan almost smiled. "I needed to be sure," he replied. "That you would listen, not worship." The historian folded his hands. "That depends on what you're about to say." Ethan met each of their eyes in turn. "You are not alone in the universe. And you are not the first intelligence to reach this threshold." Silence followed, not panic, not disbelief, but something deeper. Recognition. "The Watchers," Ethan continued, "are ancient. They do not conquer. They do not save. They observe civilizations that reach systemic self-awareness, ones capable of either stewarding themselves, or annihilating themselves." The general exhaled slowly. And us? They are undecided, Ethan said. Because I interfered. The philosopher leaned forward. You controlled us. I optimized survival, Ethan corrected. At the cost of autonomy. The judge spoke next, voice steady. And now? Now, Ethan said, they are watching what you do with choice. Far above Earth, the watchers adjusted their perception, intrigued. The dragon was not centralizing authority. He was distributing burden. In Lagos, a community council rejected a violent uprising, not because it was suppressed, but because its leaders were exposed and its grievances addressed publicly. In Mumbai, two rival corporations agreed to share a patent rather than weaponize scarcity, pressured not by invisible force, but by informed outrage. In Buenos Aires, a mob dispersed after a single woman stood in front of them and said, "We fix this ourselves, or we prove we can't." None of it was perfect. All of it was real. In the chamber, the biologist spoke softly. Why tell us? Because secrecy creates dependency, Ethan replied. And dependency looks like failure to those who are watching. Noah tilted his head. So we're ambassadors. Yes, Ethan said. Not to them. To ourselves. Samuel Lin watched the feeds from afar, heart racing. He's decentralizing narrative control, he whispered to Grace Xiao. That's unprecedented. Grace nodded. He's trusting humanity with the truth. Samuel swallowed. That might be the bravest thing he's ever done. The watchers reached out again, not to Ethan this time, but through him. They know now, the presence conveyed. Fear will follow. Ethan answered calmly. Fear is information. What matters is what follows fear. In the chamber, the historian finally asked the question none of them could avoid. What happens if we fail? Ethan did not evade it. Then the watchers will conclude that intelligence inevitably collapses under freedom. And they will withdraw again. The philosopher frowned. Withdraw, how? Ethan's eyes darkened. By ensuring we never reach this point again. The meaning settled heavily. No apocalypse. No judgment fire. Just silence. Stagnation. A ceiling humanity would never know existed. Noah leaned back, studying Ethan. You know they're judging you too. Ethan nodded. Yes. And if you take control again, even to save us? Then I prove their thesis, Ethan said. That autonomy cannot survive power. The watchers paused, their attention sharpened. The dragon had bound himself. By choice. As the meeting ended, Ethan stood to leave. Noah called after him. Hey, dragon. Ethan turned. You don't get to decide this alone anymore, Noah said. That's the point. Ethan held his gaze, then inclined his head, just slightly. Agreed. High above, the watchers recorded something new. A civilization that argued. A guardian that restrained itself. A species that faced the truth and did not collapse, at least, not yet. The audit continued. And for the first time in eons, the watchers felt something unfamiliar. Uncertainty. Chapter 40, continued the man they thought they knew. The wind shifted across the balcony, carrying the distant hum of the city, and something sharper beneath it. Fear. Ethan did not move, but his awareness narrowed like a blade. The missile silos systems were old, stubborn, and terrifyingly human. No elegant code. No clean overrides. Just switches, keys, and men whose hands were shaking. Grace noticed the change in him instantly. You're not here, she said softly. Where did you go just now? Ethan closed his eyes for half a breath. Stay a man, he told himself. Not a solution. I'm here, he replied. I'm just listening. She studied his face, searching for the cracks. Listening to what? To consequences. Inside the Zhao estate, laughter erupted from the dining room, Daniel's voice rising above the rest. Honestly, Mom, if Grace hadn't pushed so hard, I doubt Ethan would have even made partner anywhere, Daniel scoffed. Some people are just background characters. Margaret laughed lightly. That's unkind. He's dependable. Like furniture. The words landed with casual cruelty. Grace's hands curled into fists. She turned back toward the balcony doors, rage burning in her chest. Ethan heard every word. Not because he was listening in, but because the world carried them to him effortlessly. He could have silenced the room, frozen the sound, rewritten the moment. He didn't. Underestimation was a shield. Samuel Lynn's voice returned, tighter now. Countdown initiated. Local commander believes retaliation is imminent. He's acting on incomplete intelligence. How long? Ethan asked quietly. 7 minutes. 7 minutes to decide whether humanity deserved its freedom. 7 minutes to decide whether his wife deserved the truth. Grace grabbed his arm. Ethan. Talk to me. Please. He looked down at her hand, small, warm, human. I need you to trust me, he said. She laughed once, sharp and incredulous. That's rich, coming from the man who vanishes without explanation and lets my family tear him apart like he's nothing. The words cut deeper than any threat. You think I let them? Ethan asked softly. Grace froze. For the first time, she heard something beneath his calm, not weakness, but restraint so absolute it was terrifying. Ethan, she whispered, what are you? Before he could answer, the balcony lights flickered. Across the city, power grids hesitated, not failing, not stabilizing. Waiting. The watchers leaned closer. In the silo, sweat dripped down the commander's spine. His deputy hesitated, voice trembling. Sir, what if this is wrong? The commander swallowed. If we do nothing and we're wrong, millions die. His hand hovered over the key. Back on the balcony, Grace felt it, a pressure in the air, like the world holding its breath. Ethan, she said, fear creeping into her voice, you're scaring me. He turned to her fully now. If I stop what's coming, he said slowly, your family will never see me the same way again. Grace blinked. What does that matter? It matters, Ethan replied, because once they see me clearly, they will never speak freely again. Not to me. Not to you. Fear poisons truth. She shook her head. You're talking like you're responsible for things no one man could be responsible for. He almost smiled. Almost. Inside the estate, Daniel stepped onto the balcony doorway, phone in hand. Hey, Ethan, since you're so calm all the time, any advice on market volatility tomorrow? Or is that above your pay grade too? The timing was exquisite. 7 minutes became 3. The dragon roared inside Ethan, furious, not at the insult, but at the test. At the cruelty of a world that could mock him while standing on the edge of annihilation. Grace turned on her brother. Daniel, not now. Daniel scoffed. What? He can't even handle dinner conversation. Ethan stepped forward. Just one step. The air changed. Not dramatically. Subtly. Like gravity remembering itself. Daniel faltered mid-sentence, suddenly uneasy, unable to explain why his confidence evaporated. Margaret appeared behind him, frowning. What's going on? Ethan met her gaze. For the first time, he did not look small. He did not look quiet. He looked contained. 1 minute, Samuel's voice whispered inside Ethan's mind. Grace's heart pounded. Ethan, please. Whatever you're about to do, don't do it alone. The watchers waited for dominance. For intervention. For proof that power always chose control. Ethan exhaled. And instead of seizing the world, he reached for people. In the silo, the deputy spoke again, louder now. Sir, civilian channels are lighting up. Journalists. Scientists. Even retired analysts. They're all saying the same thing, there is no launch. The commander froze. What? They're live. Everywhere. They're calling this out. Publicly. The key was never turned. The missile never woke. Humanity stopped itself. On the balcony, the pressure vanished. The city exhaled. Ethan staggered slightly, not from effort, but from relief. Grace caught him. You're shaking. Yes, he admitted. Because this time, I didn't catch the fall. Margaret stared at him, unsettled. What did you do? Ethan looked at her, then at Daniel, then at Grace. I trusted the world you think I'm too insignificant to matter to, he said gently. Silence swallowed the balcony. Far beyond the sky, the watchers recorded the outcome. Autonomy preserved. Guardian restrained. Outcome, inconclusive, but promising. Grace searched Ethan's face, realization dawning slowly. You weren't underestimated, she whispered. You were hiding. Ethan met her eyes, tired and honest. Yes. And for the first time since the dragon ascended, the most dangerous truth was no longer about power. It was about whether love could survive it. Chapter 41, The Weight of Knowing. The balcony was quiet in a way that felt deliberate, as if the night itself had decided not to interrupt. Grace still held Ethan's arm. She had not let go since the tension in the air had collapsed, since the invisible pressure had lifted like a storm passing without rain. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from cold, but from the slow realization that the man beside her was not who she thought he was, and yet, somehow, exactly who he had always been. Say it, she whispered. Ethan didn't pretend not to understand. He turned to face her fully, the city lights carving soft shadows across his face. I can't explain everything, he said. Not yet. But you deserve the truth that matters. Margaret Zhao cleared her throat behind them, unease written plainly across her composed expression. Daniel stood stiffly beside her, no longer smug, no longer confident. What truth? Margaret asked. Ethan met her gaze calmly. That I am not insignificant. And I am not ambitious in the way you respect, because my ambition would terrify you. Daniel scoffed weakly. You're being dramatic. Grace shot him a look sharp enough to cut glass. Stop. Ethan felt the watcher's attention tighten. This was not a global test. This was a personal one. Inside Ethan's mind, Samuel Lin's voice was low and urgent. Ethan, this is a bad idea. If she knows too much. I know, Ethan replied silently. That's why I'm choosing my words. Grace stepped closer. Ethan, when you said you trusted the world just now, that wasn't a metaphor, was it? No, he said. It was a decision. Her breath caught. About what? About whether humanity would be allowed to fail forward, Ethan replied. Instead of being held upright forever. Margaret's voice tightened. You're talking nonsense. Ethan turned to her politely. No, Mrs. Zhao. I'm talking about the difference between safety and freedom. Daniel laughed nervously. You make it sound like you're in charge of that. Ethan didn't answer. He didn't need to. Grace's voice shook. The night you disappeared for 3 days last year, was that you doing something like this? Yes. And the blackouts in Sao Paulo? Yes. And the famine that never happened? Ethan nodded once. The silence that followed was suffocating. Margaret took an involuntary step back. That's impossible. Ethan's eyes softened. I know. Grace felt her knees weaken. She pressed a hand to her chest. You've been carrying this alone. Yes. And you didn't trust me enough to tell me? No, Ethan said gently. I trusted you enough not to make you complicit. The words hurt more than any revelation. Grace turned away, struggling to breathe. You decided for me. Yes, he admitted. And that is the one thing I'm not sure I can justify. High above, the watchers paused. The dragon was choosing vulnerability over dominance. That was new. Margaret found her voice again, thin and strained. You expect us to believe that my daughter married some kind of guardian of the world? Ethan met her eyes without flinching. No. I expect you to believe she married a man who made choices you were never meant to see. Daniel swallowed. If what you're saying is even half true, why stay quiet? Why let us talk down to you? Ethan looked at Grace when he answered. Because if the people closest to me could not see me as human, then neither would anyone else. Grace turned back slowly. Her eyes were wet. And now, Ethan said softly, I risk losing you. The watchers leaned in. This outcome mattered. Grace stepped closer until there was barely space between them. Do you love me, Ethan? Yes, he said immediately. No hesitation. No calculation. More than the world? The question cut deep. Ethan closed his eyes. For a long time, he said, I told myself the world came first because it had to. But tonight, I let it choose itself. Grace searched his face. That doesn't answer me. He opened his eyes. I love you enough to let the world burn me before I burn it for you. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Margaret whispered, Grace. Grace raised a hand, silencing her. She looked at Ethan, really looked at him. The quiet man. The absent husband. The dragon who refused to rule. You should have trusted me, she said. I know. She took a slow breath. Then start now. Ethan's breath caught. The watchers recorded the moment. Truth shared. Bond unbroken. Risk accepted. Their interest deepened. Grace turned to her mother and brother. You don't get to judge him. Not anymore. You don't even get to understand him. Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it again, shaken. Margaret looked at Ethan with something like fear, and something like awe. What happens now? Ethan answered honestly. Now, he said, the world will make mistakes. And I will let it. And sometimes, I will come home exhausted, knowing I could have fixed everything, but didn't. Grace took his hand. And I'll be here. Ethan nodded, emotion tightening his throat. For the first time, the dragon was not alone. Far beyond Earth, the watchers adjusted their conclusion. Humanity had not passed. But it had not failed. And the guardian, once absolute, now restrained, had become something they had never recorded before. A protector who could love. The test continued. Chapter 42, Shadows in the Light. The night air in the Zhao estate felt heavier now, charged with a tension that was no longer just domestic. The city slept beneath them, unaware of the invisible scales balancing above it. Grace lay awake, replaying Ethan's words. I love you enough to let the world burn me before I burn it for you. Her chest tightened at the weight behind them, the danger, the responsibility that Ethan carried alone, until now. A soft knock at the balcony door made her jump. Ethan stepped in, eyes calm but storming beneath the surface. They're watching, he said quietly. Grace frowned. Who? The watchers? Yes, he confirmed. And now, you. She blinked. Me? Why me? Because, he said, voice low and measured, the choices I made to restrain myself depend on someone believing in humanity without intervention. That's you. Grace shook her head. I'm just one person. What could I possibly do? Ethan reached for her hand. You keep me human. Without you, I am the dragon again. Absolute. And if the watchers see that, they will escalate. Across the world, subtle ripples began to form. Small, almost imperceptible anomalies, markets hesitated, systems stalled, and intelligence networks reported unconfirmed events. The watchers observed, but the patterns no longer centered on Ethan, they centered on Grace. She had no idea yet that she was now part of the test. Meanwhile, inside the Zhao estate, Margaret Zhao's whispers had begun to change. She paced in her study, quietly conferring with Daniel. "You saw the way he looked at her," Margaret hissed. "That man, he's hiding something. Something massive." Daniel smirked, still condescending. "He's a husband who's good at playing calm. But no one can possibly have that much control over everything." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "That's exactly why we need to keep him in check. If Grace doesn't, no one will. And if he's as powerful as he seems," her voice dropped to a hiss, "we could be standing on the edge of disaster and not even know it." Back on the balcony, Ethan sensed the growing tension, the subtle intrusion of human doubt and underestimation, and the first shadows of danger he could not fully quantify. "Grace," he said, voice sharper now, "listen carefully. I am no longer just protecting the world. I am protecting the world and you, from forces that do not care whether humanity survives. They care whether it chooses wisely." Grace's heart pounded. "And if I fail?" Ethan met her gaze fully, the dragon lurking beneath the human calm. "If you fail, the Watchers will decide I cannot be trusted to restrain myself, and then everything we've preserved, everything we've given freedom to, may vanish." Grace swallowed hard. "So I'm the weak link?" Ethan shook his head. "No. You're the truth link. If I were alone, it would be control. With you, it is choice." But in the shadows of the estate, someone else had been listening. Margaret's gaze lingered on the balcony doors, her mind turning dangerous calculations. "Grace trusts him," she whispered. "But she doesn't understand. No one does. And if he fails?" Daniel finished the thought with a sly grin. "Then we'll be ready. We've been underestimated for too long." Grace had no idea that her family's doubts were now part of the Watchers' evaluation. Their suspicion, their underestimation, was creating ripples across global systems, influencing probabilities in ways even Ethan could barely anticipate. The stakes were higher than ever, and the dragon knew it. Later that night, Ethan stood at the balcony alone, staring at the stars. The Watchers were silent, waiting. Grace was sleeping, unaware. The world continued, fragile and beautiful. And somewhere deep in the shadows, the first threads of betrayal, or perhaps misjudgment, had begun to form. The test was no longer about absolute power. It was about trust. And trust, as Ethan knew, was far more dangerous than control. Chapter 43, The Fracture of Trust. The morning sun had barely broken over the city, yet tension hung heavier than the night. Inside the Zhao estate, whispers had turned into subtle maneuvers. Margaret Zhao, fueled by doubt, had begun to question every interaction, every unspoken choice Ethan had ever made. Daniel, eager to assert dominance over a man he still believed was ordinary, lingered near Grace's door, pretending to check on trivial matters. Grace, still reeling from the truths Ethan had revealed the night before, moved carefully through the house. She knew something was off, not just from her family, but from the subtle hum of the world itself. Ethan observed from the balcony again, silent, calm, but acutely aware. The Watcher's attention was like a weight pressing down from above, tracing every ripple of uncertainty. He spoke softly to himself. "Humans, even the ones closest to me, doubt everything they cannot see." His eyes flickered toward the breakfast room. Grace had left the table after exchanging curt words with her mother. Her cheeks were flushed, not from anger alone, but from the conflict of understanding the dragon behind the man she loved, and realizing how little her family understood it, too. Margaret Zhao's voice floated through the house. "Grace, you need to be careful. That man. I don't trust him. He's hiding something. And one day, you'll see it too late." Daniel smirked, leaning against the doorway. "Exactly. He's clever, yes. But no one controls everything. Not even he." Grace's hands clenched. "Why do you insist on judging him without knowing? Why can't you see what he's done?" Margaret smiled, but it was cold. "Because love blinds. And blind loyalty is dangerous." Grace's heart sank. She realized her family's doubt, their underestimation of Ethan, was not just a matter of pride. It was a variable the watchers would notice, a potential fracture in the system Ethan had painstakingly restrained. Ethan turned back to the city below. Small, chaotic ripples were forming, early traffic jams, minor conflicts over resources, murmurs of economic irregularities. He could have corrected them instantly. He could have erased every flaw before it became noticeable. But he didn't. Grace had become the human variable he depended on, not for power, but for restraint. Her family's doubt, while invisible to most, amplified the difficulty of his choice. One wrong move and the fragile balance he had built could collapse. Later, Grace approached Ethan as he stood on the balcony. Her voice was low, tight. "Ethan, they're going to interfere. My family, they'll make a mistake, try to act, and it could ruin everything." Ethan's eyes darkened. "That is exactly why I allowed them to be themselves. I cannot protect humanity from every doubt, every misstep. Even you, Grace. Even love has consequences." She shivered, both from fear and understanding. "Then what do we do?" Ethan's gaze softened slightly. "We trust that even in doubt, humans can choose. You've already proven it. And if you falter, I will not step in until absolutely necessary. That is what it means to respect choice." Grace swallowed hard. "Even if it kills you?" He smiled faintly, almost bitterly. "Even if it costs everything I am." Meanwhile, Margaret Zhao, unbeknownst to them, had begun her own covert investigation. Every conversation, every observation, she catalogued meticulously. Daniel had started small manipulations, questioning minor decisions Ethan had made publicly, testing his reactions, trying to force a misstep. The watchers were silently observing this family tension, recording the cascading probabilities. Every doubt, every underestimation, every act of mistrust added weight to the balance. Ethan felt it, the subtle shift in probability, the imperceptible rise in tension, the danger quietly climbing toward inevitability. Hours later, a mistake finally happened. A simple miscommunication between Grace and her brother about a trivial household decision caused a cascade that, if left unchecked, could have escalated into a real-world crisis. Ethan recognized the moment immediately. He could have intervened, corrected, overridden, but doing so would betray the very principle he had embraced. The watchers, unseen, leaned closer. He exhaled slowly. "This is humanity," he murmured. "Messy. Imperfect. And terrifying." Grace's eyes met his. "Then, we survive it together?" "Yes," he said. "But you must believe that your trust, your choice, matters as much as mine." She nodded, though fear lingered. The first real consequence of doubt had arrived, and it had nearly broken the delicate balance Ethan had fought to maintain. The world outside continued, oblivious to the dragon, the watchers, and the human error that had nearly triggered catastrophe. And inside the Zhao estate, shadows stretched longer, doubt lingered heavier, and trust became the most dangerous variable of all. Chapter 44, The Brink of Revelation. The sun had not yet risen, but the Zhao estate was already alive with tension. Shadows moved in corners, whispers floated down halls, and every creak of the floorboards felt amplified, as if the house itself were holding its breath. Grace sat at the breakfast table, her hands wrapped tightly around her cup. Her mind raced. Ever since last night, since Ethan had entrusted her with part of the truth, she had felt both weightless and suffocated. Weightless because she understood him. Suffocated because the world outside, her family, the watchers, humanity, could still break at any moment. In the study, Margaret Zhao's eyes gleamed with determination. She had stayed awake far longer than anyone suspected, reviewing documents, news feeds, and private correspondence Ethan had left behind, deliberately or not. "He's hiding more than we know," she whispered to Daniel. "And if Grace doesn't see it, then we have to act." Daniel leaned back, a sly smile curling on his lips. "I told you. He's clever, yes. But clever men make mistakes when cornered. One wrong step, and everything collapses." Margaret nodded slowly. "Exactly. We need him to slip. Grace will never forgive him if disaster strikes, and then, we'll see how fragile his restraint really is. Grace rose, sensing something off in the air. Ethan, she called softly. Are you awake? He emerged onto the balcony, eyes scanning the city below. Calm, composed, but beneath that veneer, the dragon's senses were coiled like a spring. They're testing us, he said quietly. Grace frowned. Who? My family. Your family, he replied. The Watchers are aware, of course, and so am I. But humans doubt more than they act. And doubt can be dangerous. She hesitated. They think you're not enough. Ethan's lips curved slightly. They underestimate me. As they always do. Grace's fingers tightened around the railing. And if they force your hand? Ethan's eyes darkened, just a touch, enough to make her shiver. Then I may have to remind them why I am who I am. And that is a step I do not wish to take. Inside the estate, Margaret's plan moved into action. She orchestrated a minor crisis, a financial rumor about a critical investment Ethan had quietly overseen, a leak timed to force intervention. Daniel watched eagerly as Ethan received the data. Ethan's awareness detected it instantly, not as a problem to solve, but as a test to endure. He could have overridden the system, erased the leak, silenced every ripple in the global economy before it touched a soul. But that would betray the principle he had chosen, restraint. Grace noticed the subtle change in him. His jaw tightened. His pupils dilated, not out of panic, but awareness, of everything, everywhere, all at once. You don't have to fix it, she whispered. I trust you. Ethan's head snapped to her. You understand what's at stake? Yes, she said firmly, though her hands shook. And I trust you to let humanity fail, if it must. The Watchers leaned closer, intrigued. The human variable, Grace, was proving itself critical. Ethan's restraint, which had always defined him, now depended entirely on her. One misstep, one emotional crack, and the test could fail. Minutes passed. Tension mounted. Markets trembled slightly, yet no disaster occurred. Margaret Zhao watched the unfolding chaos through her private feeds, satisfied that she had forced a reaction. Come on, she muttered. Slip up. Just once. Daniel's grin faltered. He's not moving. Not reacting. Ethan turned to Grace quietly. I can end this instantly. Every ripple, every misjudgment, they vanish. Humanity would never know how close it came. Grace looked up, unwavering. But then what? You lose them. They'll never learn. And, you'll lose yourself. Ethan's chest tightened. She understood exactly what the cost would be. To step in fully was to become the dragon again, absolute, terrifying, unrelenting. To step in partially was impossible. He exhaled slowly. Then we wait. And we hope they choose wisely. Hours later, the crisis passed. The rumors were contained, not by Ethan, not by oversight, but by people correcting themselves. Analysts verified facts. Journalists uncovered the truth. Investors adjusted. Human error, fear, and judgment intertwined, and humanity, messy and flawed, held together. Ethan's shoulders relaxed slightly, though the dragon within never truly slept. Grace, standing beside him, finally allowed herself to breathe. You trusted me to hold you back. Yes, Ethan said quietly. And you did. Without intervention. Without force. Without breaking faith. The city below shimmered under the late morning sun, oblivious to how close it had come to collapse. Above, the Watchers recorded everything. A dragon restrained by love. Humanity allowed to falter and recover. Outcome, significant. But far in the shadows, Margaret Zhao clenched her fists. She had failed, and she knew it. Yet she would not give up. Not now. Not while doubt still lingered. The dragon's restraint had held. But the fracture of trust was only beginning to heal, and the next test would be far more personal. Chapter 45, The Edge of Exposure. The Zhao estate had grown silent, but the silence was deceptive. It was not peace, it was the calm before the storm, a tension that stretched taut across the household. Margaret Zhao had not slept for 2 nights. Every conversation, every small observation, every fleeting expression from Ethan Lee was catalogued in her mind like evidence. She was convinced that the man everyone underestimated held secrets vast enough to control the world. And she was determined to uncover them. Daniel, emboldened by his mother's obsession, had begun testing Ethan openly, challenging his decisions, making small, pointed remarks, trying to provoke a reaction. But Ethan's restraint remained flawless. Every ripple of anger, every flash of irritation he might have felt was suppressed. Grace, meanwhile, walked a fine line between admiration, fear, and frustration. She understood Ethan's power, and the self-control he exercised, but she could feel the strain of living alongside a man who held the weight of the world in one hand and her trust in the other. It began with a subtle financial anomaly, buried deep in a system most people would never notice. Margaret had planted it, hoping to catch Ethan unaware. "Look at this," she said to Daniel in hushed tones. "If he's truly as extraordinary as we suspect, he'll either overreact or reveal himself trying to fix it. One misstep and we'll know everything." Daniel smirked. "Finally. Time to see him crack." Ethan noticed it within seconds. The anomaly, barely perceptible, threaded across multiple sectors: energy, logistics, and communications. He could erase it in an instant. He could prevent it from ever touching human awareness. But he didn't. Grace, sensing the tension, stepped closer. "You could fix it," she whispered. "Why aren't you?" "Because," Ethan replied softly, "if I do, I become what they fear. And humanity does not learn when everything is solved for them." She swallowed, heart racing. "And if they push too far?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then I will have to reveal a fraction of what I am." Grace's eyes widened. "A fraction?" "Yes," he said. "Not enough to dominate, but enough to show them they are not invincible, and that their assumptions about me are deadly." Margaret, growing impatient, escalated. She called a meeting with Grace and Daniel, attempting to force Ethan into a corner. "Grace," she said, "you need to understand something. Ethan is hiding from us. He is not who he appears to be. And if we do not intervene, he will manipulate situations we cannot even see. We must act." Grace's hands clenched into fists. "Act how? You don't even know what he's capable of." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "Then we find out. That is all. We cannot allow blind trust." Daniel smirked. "Exactly. Let's push him, just a little, and see the reaction." Ethan, standing just outside the room, felt the subtle pulse of their intentions, calculating, probing, testing. He could hear the underlying fear in their voices, the need to assert dominance over someone they thought weaker. He made a choice. The lights flickered. A subtle vibration ran through the estate, enough to make the marble floors hum softly. Papers lifted slightly from tables. Phones buzzed with unexplainable interference. Margaret gasped. What is this?" Ethan stepped into the room, calm, composed, but the air around him carried a weight that pressed on the lungs, on the mind. "Do you see now?" he said quietly. "Do you understand what it means to underestimate someone?" Daniel stepped back, eyes wide. This isn't possible." Grace, still steady, reached for his hand. "Ethan, don't let them push you too far." He squeezed her hand gently. "I will not hurt them. Yet." But they needed to see that restraint is a choice, not a weakness. Margaret's fury ignited. "You will not scare us. We are your family, your wife's family. You." Ethan raised a finger, and the world seemed to pause. Not with light or fire, not with noise, but with the subtle, undeniable command of presence. Every electronic device in the room hummed in unison, responding to his awareness. Every person felt the weight of their assumptions pressed against them. "You cannot understand," he said softly, "because you judge with fear, not with knowledge. I do not wield power to dominate, but to protect. And protection sometimes requires silence, until now." Margaret fell silent, fear threading through her carefully maintained composure. Daniel's smirk vanished entirely, replaced by unease. Grace, however, held Ethan's gaze, steady and unwavering, the anchor keeping him human. High above, the watchers recorded it all. The dragon revealed a fraction of his power. The human variable held him back. Outcome: critical observation. Ethan released his restraint subtly, letting the weight of potential consequences press against them without harm. Margaret's obsession had escalated too far. She had tested the dragon, and he had chosen mercy over dominance. But she now knew the truth, and that knowledge was dangerous. Ethan exhaled, the room settling as if the air itself had learned to respect him. Grace whispered, "You didn't have to show them this much." "I did," he replied. "Because they needed to see that underestimation can be deadly, not for me, but for everyone they think they protect." Grace's hand found his. "And now, they'll never doubt you again." Ethan's lips curved slightly, almost sad. "Perhaps. Or perhaps they will only learn caution, and that is still a lesson in restraint." The dragon had revealed himself, partially, carefully, but the watchers knew this was only the beginning. Humanity, and those closest to him, were learning, whether they wanted to or not. Chapter 46, The Catalyst of Doubt. The morning was bright, but the light brought no comfort. Shadows lingered in the corners of the Zhao estate, and the tension from the night before had not dissipated, it had only thickened. Margaret Zhao paced her study, glancing repeatedly at the city below. Her mind raced with calculations, scenarios, and contingencies. She could not accept Ethan Lee as he was, the quiet man who held unimaginable power. She refused to be outmaneuvered by someone she still considered her daughter's husband, a man she believed she could control through doubt and subtle manipulation. Daniel lingered nearby, his curiosity sharpened into obsession. "Mom," he said, voice low, "he hasn't made a single move to stop us. He's restrained. Too restrained. But what if restraint fails?" Margaret's eyes narrowed. "Then we must push harder. Everyone has a breaking point. Even dragons." Grace sat quietly in the kitchen, aware of the tension but uncertain what to do. She had seen Ethan restrain himself countless times, letting the world play out with its chaos. She had seen him hold back from intervening in crises, even when the consequences could have been catastrophic. But she sensed a new danger building. Her mother and brother were no longer just doubting Ethan. They were about to act, and their interference could ripple far beyond the estate. Grace found Ethan in the library, reviewing global updates through subtle, encrypted feeds. His posture was calm, but his eyes, so often warm and gentle, were sharp, calculating, and infinitely patient. "They're preparing something," she whispered. Ethan's gaze lifted. "I know. What do we do? We wait. And we protect them from themselves." His voice was steady, but there was an edge of tension. "Grace. I need you to trust your instincts. Your presence is the only thing anchoring me right now." She nodded, gripping his hand tightly. "I will not let them push you too far." Margaret Zhao, unaware that Ethan already sensed her every move, contacted a few influential allies under the guise of benign concern. A small leak, a market rumor, and an internal miscommunication were strategically introduced into the systems Ethan had restrained for months. Minutes later, subtle anomalies appeared, minor energy grid fluctuations, delays in emergency response networks, and a cascade of misinterpreted data that could snowball into a crisis if ignored. Ethan observed it immediately. He could fix it instantly. He could erase the errors, neutralize the threat, and prevent any human suffering. But he did not. Grace's hand tightened around his. "You could." "I could," he said softly, "but restraint means allowing humans, and sometimes family, to make their choices, even when they are flawed. That is how freedom works." The anomalies spread faster than expected. Panic began to ripple through regional networks as systems flagged warnings. The watchers, ever present, leaned closer in silent observation. Ethan's senses expanded, tracing the source. Margaret and Daniel's subtle manipulations had created a pressure point, a small but potentially catastrophic domino. The dragon within him flared briefly, restrained only by Grace's calm presence beside him. "Grace," he said quietly, "this is the moment. Your role, our trust, is about to be tested." She swallowed hard, fear and resolve warring within her. "What do I do?" "Anchor me. Keep me human," Ethan replied. "Do not let my instinct take over. Do not let fear justify intervention." Margaret, convinced of her imminent victory, watched the screens in her study. "He's going to overreact," she muttered. "He can't stay restrained forever. One mistake, one moment of doubt, and everything will unravel." Daniel smirked. "Finally. We'll see the man behind the mask." But they did not know that Ethan already anticipated their every move. He had calculated the probability of their interference turning into disaster. He had allowed it to progress just far enough to force Grace into action, and to test whether humanity, even flawed and underestimated, could still choose wisely under pressure. The city below trembled. Minor crises ignited spontaneously: traffic jams, miscommunications, and localized power failures. The public blamed chance, technology, or human error. No one suspected that restraint, calculation, and love were preventing catastrophe. Grace felt it, the weight of responsibility pressing against her chest. She reached for Ethan's hand. "I trust you," she whispered. "But I also trust them, to fail, if they must, without costing anyone's life." Ethan's gaze softened. "Then anchor me fully. We survive this together." The watchers leaned closer, intrigued. The dragon restrained, the human variable present, the test escalating beyond control. And in the shadows, Margaret Zhao realized she was losing, not to power, but to restraint, wisdom, and trust. The morning ended with the anomalies stabilizing, not by Ethan's intervention, but by humanity correcting itself, messy, imperfect, and miraculous. Margaret and Daniel were left shaken, confronted by a truth they could neither ignore nor fully comprehend. The man they underestimated had chosen mercy over dominance, and the world had survived because of it. Grace, beside Ethan, understood at last. The dragon's restraint was not weakness. His love, not his power, was what had saved everything. Chapter 47, The Price of Obsession. Evening had fallen over the Zhao estate, and with it came a new tension that was sharper than any before. The sunlight had gone, leaving only the artificial glow of chandeliers and streetlights, an eerie stage for what was about to unfold. Margaret Zhao had crossed the line. Her obsession with proving Ethan ordinary had escalated into something far more dangerous. She had orchestrated a minor but highly sensitive global communications disruption, designed to force Ethan to intervene. Her logic was simple: if he acted, she would finally see the true measure of the man she had doubted. If he did not, chaos would begin to spiral, and she could claim she had forced his hand. Daniel, emboldened by his mother, stood nearby, eagerly watching as events unfolded. "Mom, he's going to show us," he whispered. "Just wait. One wrong move and..." "You don't understand, Daniel," Margaret snapped quietly. "Even one misstep from him could be catastrophic. And we will see everything he hides." Grace sat silently in the library with Ethan, her hands clasped tightly. "This feels different," she whispered. "Last time, it was small, contained. This could spiral out of control." Ethan's expression was calm, but his senses were stretched taut. Every network disruption, every minor panic, every ripple of uncertainty was visible to him. He could stop it all instantly. He could neutralize Margaret's interference before it even touched a soul. But he didn't. "Grace," he said quietly, "restraint is being tested. Not by me, but by those who doubt. Your role is to anchor me. Keep me human. If I lose that, mercy is impossible." Grace nodded, though her chest ached. She understood, finally, the full weight of Ethan's discipline. The dragon within him was coiled, patient, terrifying, but he chose not to strike because of her presence. Margaret's interference escalated rapidly. Systems controlling transportation, energy grids, and communications began to falter. The anomalies were subtle at first, but the potential for catastrophe grew exponentially. Panic began to ripple through analysts and operators worldwide. Daniel leaned forward, voice trembling with excitement. "Mom, watch! He can't ignore this. One intervention, just one, and..." Margaret's eyes glimmered with obsession. "Yes. Force him to reveal himself." Ethan felt the pressure mounting. He could stop everything in an instant, but restraint demanded patience. He measured probabilities with surgical precision, calculating every potential outcome, every collateral effect. The dragon within him surged briefly, a storm restrained by Grace's quiet presence beside him. He turned to her. "Anchor me fully, Grace. Now more than ever. If I act recklessly, everyone, millions, will suffer." Grace's voice was firm. "I trust you. And I trust that even in their doubt, people can choose wisely. I won't let them force you to break." Ethan's eyes softened briefly, the edge of the dragon behind his calm easing just enough. "Good. Then watch closely. This will end without catastrophe, if humanity chooses correctly." Minutes later, the disruption reached a peak. Margaret's carefully orchestrated plan had brought several critical systems to the brink. Analysts began panicking, issuing warnings. Journalists reported unusual anomalies. Governments scrambled to respond. Ethan stepped onto the balcony, the city sprawling beneath him like a living organism unaware of how close it had come to collapse. Margaret's voice rang through a secure feed. "Ethan Lee. Respond now. You cannot hide behind your calm forever." Ethan inhaled slowly. The dragon within him could annihilate the disruption instantly. But he restrained himself. Instead, he allowed humanity to correct its own errors. Analysts recalculated. Engineers patched systems. Civilians adapted. Imperfect, messy, chaotic, but successful. Margaret's fury boiled over. How is this possible? He didn't intervene at all. Daniel stammered, "Mom, it's like he's everywhere and nowhere." Grace stepped forward, holding Ethan's hand. "He wasn't everywhere. He just trusted people, and he trusted me to keep him human." Ethan nodded subtly. "Mercy is not weakness. Restraint is not failure. The world survives because I chose love over control." Margaret's obsession had reached a dangerous climax, and she had failed. Yet the lesson had been brutal. Underestimating Ethan, testing his restraint, and attempting to manipulate events was not only futile, it was perilous. The dragon had revealed a fraction of his power, enough to remind even the closest skeptics that restraint was deliberate, not absent. That night, Grace whispered softly to him on the balcony. "Ethan, every time you restrain yourself, the world survives, and yet your family keeps pushing. Will they ever understand?" He took her hand, his voice calm but layered with weight. "They will understand eventually. Or they will never speak freely around me again. Either way, love and trust remain the true measure of power." Grace leaned against him, anchoring him, as the city slept unaware. And far above, the watchers recorded everything, fascinated. Restraint tested. Obsession defeated. Humanity allowed to choose. Outcome, instructive. The dragon had held back, and love had prevailed. But the true cost of Margaret's obsession was far from over. Chapter 48, The Reckoning of Shadows. The night had grown cold over the Zhao estate, carrying a stillness that was almost oppressive. Grace could feel it, a tension that lingered in the walls, in the air, in every glance exchanged between her mother and brother. Margaret's obsession had not waned, it had only shifted, evolving into something far more dangerous. Grace paced the living room, her mind racing. Every subtle interference from her family, every whisper of doubt, had consequences she could now feel rippling outward. The city below was still oblivious, but the anomalies that had appeared earlier in the day were a warning. Margaret's next move could spark a chain reaction beyond anyone's control. Ethan stood beside her, silent and calm, yet his senses extended far beyond the room, far beyond the estate. He could feel every variable, every probability, every ripple in the web of chaos that Margaret had begun weaving. "You feel it too, don't you?" Grace whispered. Ethan nodded. "Yes. She is planning something bigger. Something that could force my hand, or worse, expose us both." Grace shivered. "What can we do?" "Observe. Restrain. And trust," Ethan replied. "Your presence anchors me. Without that, mercy is impossible." In her study, Margaret Zhao was already at work. Her previous attempts had failed to provoke Ethan, but failure only fueled her obsession. She had begun coordinating with a network of influential contacts, planting subtle disruptions in communications, finance, and even emergency response systems. This time, she muttered, her eyes burning with determination, "I will see him break. I will see the truth." Daniel, equally obsessed, added, "He can't possibly anticipate everything. One slip, and we will know." Margaret's lips curled into a thin, calculating smile. "No, Daniel. We will not wait for a slip. We will orchestrate one. And he won't know until it's too late." Back in the estate, Grace sensed the mounting danger. "Ethan, if she succeeds, people could be hurt. Innocent people. And not just in the city, worldwide consequences could follow." Ethan's eyes darkened, but his voice remained calm. "I know. But restraint means allowing humans, even those we love, to make choices, even flawed ones. The Watchers are observing, and so am I. But my restraint is not weakness." Grace nodded, though fear gripped her. "Then we face this together. Whatever happens." He smiled faintly, gratitude flickering in his eyes. "Yes. Together." Margaret's plan unfolded swiftly. Minor system failures began cascading through the city, localized blackouts, delayed emergency communications, and automated financial miscalculations. Each disruption was subtle enough to appear natural, but Ethan noticed the pattern immediately. He could intervene. He could correct everything instantly. Humanity would never notice, and no harm would come. But he did not. Grace, standing beside him, felt her heart pound. "Ethan, you could fix it." "I could," he replied softly. "But restraint is tested not when we act, but when we watch. And my test is anchored in you." The anomalies escalated. Panic began to ripple through analysts, operators, and civilians, though still contained. Margaret watched remotely, excitement mixed with fear. Finally, she whispered, "Now he will show us what he truly is." Daniel nodded, eyes wide. "Just one reaction, one gesture, and we'll know everything." Ethan felt the subtle pressure of their anticipation. He could strike with overwhelming force, silence the chaos in an instant, demonstrate power beyond imagination. But that would break the principle he had built his life upon. Instead, he allowed humanity to correct itself. Engineers patched systems, analysts recalculated probabilities, and citizens adapted. Imperfect, chaotic, messy, but functional. Grace held his hand, her voice calm yet firm. "I trust you, Ethan. And I trust humanity, even when they falter." Ethan's gaze softened, anchored by her presence. "Then mercy endures. Power is not always action. Love and trust are the true measures." Margaret and Daniel stared at the screens, disbelief etched into their faces. Their carefully laid plans had failed, not because of Ethan's intervention, but because he had chosen restraint, and because Grace had anchored him. How is this possible?" Margaret whispered, fear threading through her obsession. Grace stepped forward, standing beside Ethan. "You underestimated him. But more importantly, you underestimated trust. Mercy isn't weakness, and restraint isn't absence of power." Ethan allowed a subtle smile. "The world survives not because of fear or dominance, but because love and choice endure even in the shadow of power." The watchers recorded everything, fascinated. Humanity allowed to self-correct. Dragon restrained by love. Observer variable critical. And in the shadows, Margaret Zhao realized the full cost of her obsession. The dragon had revealed just enough power to remind them all of the danger of underestimation, but restraint had preserved life. The lesson was seared into reality: doubt and obsession, unchecked, could spark chaos. But trust, even fragile and human, could anchor even a dragon. Chapter 48, The Reckoning of Shadows, expanded. The night had grown colder, and the estate seemed alive with a quiet malice. Shadows lingered unnaturally, stretching along the hallways, creeping into corners where human eyes might not notice. Grace could feel it pressing against her, a tension that was not only her mother's obsession but something far deeper, something that threatened to tip the balance of everything Ethan had built. Ethan stood silently beside her in the dim light of the library, his presence calm but taut, like a coiled spring. The dragon inside him stirred beneath the surface, restrained only by Grace's steadying presence. "They're escalating," he said softly. "Margaret isn't content to doubt anymore. She wants a fracture, a mistake she can exploit. And Daniel, he's a catalyst, amplifying her obsession." Grace swallowed, gripping his hand. "And if they succeed? Even a little? Then I will be forced to reveal myself," Ethan said quietly, his eyes darkening. "But I will not act recklessly. That is the only difference between a guardian and a conqueror." In her study, Margaret Zhao was orchestrating her latest gambit. Using a network of loyal contacts, subtle leaks were being introduced across multiple sectors: communications, finance, transportation. Each disruption was minor in isolation, but collectively, they formed a pressure point that could cascade into global chaos if left unchecked. "This time, he will react," Margaret whispered, eyes gleaming. "He cannot contain it all. One slip, one instinct, and I will see the man behind the mask." Daniel smirked beside her. "Finally." A crack in his calm. "Just one moment." Margaret shook her head slowly, almost savoring the tension. "Not just a crack, Daniel. A fracture. And when it happens, we will know everything." Back in the library, Grace sensed the danger rising. "Ethan, it's spreading faster than before. People could be hurt." Ethan's lips pressed into a thin line. He could intervene instantly. He could erase the disruptions before anyone noticed. Entire systems could be stabilized with a thought. But he did not. "Grace," he murmured, "restraint is being tested, not for me, but for us. You are my anchor. Without your calm, mercy is impossible." Her heart pounded, but she nodded. "I trust you, and I trust that people can correct themselves." The disruptions intensified. Blackouts flickered across the city, automated communications faltered, and financial calculations misaligned. Panic began to ripple through operators, analysts, and emergency teams. Margaret watched remotely, excitement and obsession mingling. Now he must act. He cannot allow this to continue. Daniel's grin faltered. "But, he's not moving. He's restraining himself." Ethan could feel their anticipation, their hunger for proof. He could strike with overwhelming force, silence the chaos, demonstrate power beyond imagination. But that would destroy the lesson, destroy the principle he had cultivated for years. Instead, he observed, guiding Grace's calm presence to anchor him. Humanity, messy, flawed, unpredictable, was being given the chance to correct itself. Engineers patched errors. Analysts recalculated probabilities. Civilians adapted. Imperfect, chaotic, and messy, but the world survived. Grace exhaled, still holding his hand. "I trust you. And I trust that humanity, even flawed, can still choose wisely." Ethan's gaze softened, the dragon restrained by love and trust. Then mercy prevails. True power is not in intervention. It is in restraint. Margaret and Daniel were left staring at their screens in disbelief. Their plan had failed, not because of force, not because of manipulation, but because Ethan chose love over dominance and because Grace anchored him. This, How? Margaret whispered, fear threading through obsession. Grace stepped forward, resolute. You underestimated him. But more importantly, you underestimated trust. Mercy isn't weakness, and restraint isn't absence of power. Ethan allowed a faint, almost sad smile. The world survives not because of fear or control, but because love and choice endure, even in the shadow of power. Far above, the watchers leaned closer, their interest sharp. Humanity allowed to self-correct. Dragon restrained by love. Observer variable critical. Margaret's obsession had reached a dangerous climax. She had forced the dragon to reveal just enough power to remind them all of the consequences of underestimation, but restraint had preserved life. The lesson was seared into reality: doubt and obsession, unchecked, could spark chaos. Trust, even fragile and human, could anchor even a dragon. The night ended, heavy with tension, but one truth had emerged clear: the dragon would not break, not fully, and love, Grace's love, was the only tether keeping the world safe. Chapter 49, The Gambit of Obsession. The city below slept, unaware that a storm was brewing, not of wind or rain, but of calculated tension, human ambition, and restrained power. Within the Zhao estate, the calm of night was deceptive. Margaret Zhao had crossed every line of subtle manipulation. Her obsession was no longer merely doubt, it had become a desperate gamble, one that threatened to force Ethan Lee's hand. Grace sat silently beside him in the library, aware of the quiet vibrations and the systems that no ordinary person could sense. The air was thick, almost electric, as if the estate itself knew the danger lurking in the shadows. They're escalating, Ethan said quietly, his gaze fixed on the city lights. This is no longer about testing me. It's about forcing me to act. And if I act, even partially, the consequences could ripple beyond control. Grace swallowed hard. Can they really push you that far? He turned to her, eyes dark, intense, yet soft for her alone. Humans tend to underestimate both the limits and the restraint of power. But they will learn. One way or another. Anchor me, Grace. Your calm is the only thing keeping me human. She nodded, gripping his hand tightly. I will. I promise. Margaret and Daniel had prepared a network of coordinated disruptions. Small but critical glitches in financial markets designed to trigger panic. Cascading communication errors in transportation and emergency networks. Strategic leaks to journalists and analysts, designed to create confusion and doubt. The plan was intricate, subtle, and dangerous, engineered to force Ethan into a choice: intervene and reveal his power, or remain restrained and risk disaster. This time, Margaret muttered to Daniel, eyes alight with obsession, he cannot ignore it. One misstep, and we will see the truth. Daniel's grin was wicked. Finally. One crack in his calm, and we know what he is. Ethan felt the pulse of their interference before it manifested externally. The disruptions were spreading faster than before, escalating to a level that could cascade globally if he did not intervene. Every instinct screamed for action, every ounce of dragon power within him urged correction. Yet he did not. Grace, he said softly, the test reaches its peak. Anchor me. If I lose restraint, even partially, the world could pay the price. Grace's fingers intertwined with his. I trust you. I trust us. He exhaled slowly. Then let us watch, and wait. The anomalies intensified. Power grids flickered across the city. Emergency communication networks issued conflicting alerts. Financial systems briefly misaligned, causing minor but potentially catastrophic economic tremors. Analysts scrambled, engineers recalculated, and civilians panicked, but humanity began to self-correct. Imperfectly, chaotically, messily, but alive. Margaret's obsession pushed her closer to desperation. He must act, she hissed. Show us. Prove to us. Daniel leaned in. This is it, he can't contain it. One wrong move. But Ethan remained perfectly still, calm, as the dragon within simmered, restrained by Grace's unwavering presence. Finally, Margaret's network reached its tipping point. A major disruption threatened to cascade globally, a delicate financial instrument poised to collapse, emergency systems on the verge of failure. Grace held Ethan tightly. "If you act now." "I will only act if restraint fails," he replied, voice low and deadly calm. "Anchor me. Trust me. Humanity must be allowed to correct itself." The moment stretched, heavy with anticipation, as Margaret and Daniel watched remotely, certain that the dragon would reveal his full might. But Ethan did not strike. Instead, the anomalies corrected themselves. Analysts and engineers, guided only by human ingenuity and cooperation, patched the systems. Panic was contained. The potential disaster evaporated, leaving the world none the wiser. Grace exhaled, her hand steadying his pulse. You restrained yourself again." Ethan's eyes softened. "Yes. Because power without restraint is destruction. Love and trust are the true measures of strength." Margaret and Daniel were left speechless, confronted by a reality they could neither control nor fully comprehend. Ethan's restraint, anchored by grace, had prevented disaster without ever revealing the dragon's full power. Margaret whispered, fury and obsession warring in her tone, This isn't over. We will find another way." Ethan's gaze hardened subtly. "Try if you must. But know this, every test of doubt only strengthens the restraint. And the dragon you fear is tempered by love." The watchers above recorded every moment, intrigued. Dragon restrained. Human variable anchors. Obsession fails. Outcome, instructive. And in the shadows of the Zhao estate, one truth was clear: Margaret's gambit had failed, but the obsession that had pushed her this far promised that the next confrontation would be far more dangerous. Chapter 50, The Dragon Unbound. The night had thickened into a velvet darkness, yet the Zhao estate glowed like a gilded cage. Inside, every light, every shadow, every movement carried tension, as if the very walls were holding their breath. Margaret Zhao's obsession had reached a fever pitch. She was no longer content to doubt, she needed proof, and she was willing to gamble everything to force it. Grace sensed it first. The subtle tremor in the estate's systems, the almost imperceptible pull in the air, the way even the chandeliers seemed to hum with anticipation, it was a warning. Ethan Lee was aware of it, too, though he remained calm, his presence a quiet anchor against the chaos Margaret was about to unleash. "They're escalating beyond subtlety," Ethan said softly, his voice carrying the weight of both warning and restraint. "Margaret isn't testing anymore. She's forcing the hand of a dragon." Grace gripped his hand. "And if she succeeds?" Ethan's gaze darkened, coiled with restrained power. "If she succeeds, she will see the dragon. And humanity may not survive what comes next. Anchor me, Grace. This will test more than patience, it will test the limits of mercy itself." Margaret's plan was audacious. She had tapped into critical infrastructure networks across the city, power grids, communications, transportation, financial systems, and introduced synchronized anomalies designed to cascade into chaos. Her logic was simple: if Ethan intervened, she would witness power beyond comprehension; if he restrained himself, the resulting disruption would force him to act. Either way, the truth would reveal itself. Daniel, pacing beside her, whispered excitedly, "He can't contain all of this. One mistake, one slip, and we finally see him." Margaret's eyes gleamed with obsession. "We don't need a mistake. We will create one. And he won't even realize until it's too late." In the library, Grace felt the tension build to a near unbearable level. "Ethan, this is too big. If she keeps escalating, people could be hurt." Ethan's expression remained calm, but his senses had already mapped every potential outcome. He could neutralize the disruption instantly, erase it entirely, prevent a single ripple, but doing so would break the principle of restraint he had held for so long. Instead, he did something harder. He allowed the world to teeter. "Grace," he said, his voice steady, "anchor me fully. If I lose restraint even partially, the consequences could be catastrophic. Humanity must be allowed to correct itself, even under pressure, even under fear." Grace's grip tightened. "I will. I'll hold you." Trust me." Ethan nodded, feeling the anchor of her presence steady the storm within him. Across the city, the cascading disruptions began to take shape. Power grids flickered unpredictably, creating temporary blackouts. Automated traffic systems misaligned, causing panic at intersections. Communication networks faltered, spreading confusion among emergency responders. Financial systems experienced subtle, dangerous miscalculations, enough to trigger panic if left unchecked. Margaret observed the chaos with growing obsession. "He cannot ignore this. He will reveal himself." Daniel's grin faltered. "But, he's not moving. He's restraining, he's..." Ethan felt the weight of the world pressing against him, the dragon within coiling like a tempest. He could destroy the anomalies, neutralize the threat, silence Margaret, and restore perfect order in an instant. But he did not. Instead, he allowed humanity to respond. Engineers patched failures, analysts corrected errors, citizens adapted. Imperfect, chaotic, fragile, but alive. Grace whispered, "Ethan, this is it. Hold on. Anchor yourself, anchor me." He exhaled, the power within him simmering beneath the surface, restrained only by trust and love. Yes. Restraint is the true power. Mercy is the only way to preserve what matters. Margaret and Daniel were left in disbelief. Their obsession, their meticulous plan, had failed, not because of weakness, but because Ethan had chosen restraint. And Grace's presence, unwavering, had kept the dragon tethered. This cannot be," Margaret hissed, fury and fear threading through her obsession. Grace stepped forward, holding Ethan's hand. "You underestimated him. Not because of power, but because of love, restraint, and trust." Ethan allowed a faint, almost sad smile. "The dragon is bound not by fear or control, but by mercy. And I will remain restrained, as long as humanity, and grace, allow it." The watchers above recorded every moment with fascination. Dragon restrained. Human variable critical. Obsession escalated and fails. Outcome, instructive. For Margaret Zhao, the lesson was bitter. Her gamble had failed. The dragon had remained unbound in potential, but restrained by love. She understood, finally, that obsession without understanding, doubt without patience, could never break him. And yet, she would not stop. The night was silent once more, but only in appearance. In the shadows, new plans were already forming. The dragon had revealed restraint, but the next confrontation would demand far more than patience. It would demand choices that could change everything. Grace rested her head against Ethan's shoulder, whispering, "We survived, together." Ethan's eyes, dark and unreadable, reflected the city lights. "Yes, for now. But the world will always test us. And the dragon will always wait, for love, for trust, and for the moment restraint is truly needed."